So as Elaine mentioned, my name is Mackenzie Martin, and I'm a Community Projects Manager at Puget Sound Energy in our Clean Energy Solutions Department. And today I'll give a brief history of PSE's EV filing with the Washington Utilities and Transportation Commission, cover PSE's use case ideation and community engagement process for our low-income EV projects, and give an overview of the low-income pilots we currently have in process, and then hand it over to Greenlots. So PSE is a gas and electric utility in Washington state, serving over 1 million electric customers. And as such, we're in the process of developing and deploying a suite of electric vehicle pilot programs to encourage market transformation in our service area. And a critical piece of that work is our set of projects designed to promote equitable access to electric mobility and the distribution of resulting environmental, social, and economic benefits. And PSE's initial 2018 electric schedule filing proposed 3 use cases under this low-income umbrella that were designed in partnership with Washington CAP agencies to electrify mobility services for low-income or underserved customers, as well as the community organizations that serve them. But after that filing and as conversations around the projects continued, we recognized we might be solutioning for the community before hearing from them fully. So we wanted to slow down and take the opportunity to gain additional input from community stakeholders regarding mobility gaps, needs, and opportunities. So to meet that goal, in May of 2019, PSE and a local CAP agency, HopeLink, co-hosted an electric mobility workshop with South King County mobility stakeholders. And those attendees represented a mix of government and transit agencies, policy advocates, and nonprofit organizations. And the workshop addressed the current state of regional mobility, current EV options and offerings, and led participants through a series of use case brainstorming exercises that culminated in small teams presenting mini business plans for the most popular use cases. And the business plans included a high-level outline of basic program elements, potential for scalability, barriers and benefits to electrification, and suggested contacts for future feasibility discussions or partnerships. And then to dive deeper into each of the suggested use cases, PSE conducted additional conversations after the workshop with approximately 20 nonprofits, government agencies, community service organizations, and private mobility organizations to better understand the networks that currently exist in those use cases, their daily operations, their fleet needs, any additional benefits or barriers to electrification, and lessons learned from similar pilot programs. If we can move to the next slide. Once we solidified which use cases to pursue and the corresponding metrics, we worked with those participants to create mutually agreeable pilot project plans. And there were 3 key pieces of these projects where flexibility and community listening was critical to co-creating valuable projects. And the first was EVSE equipment and the type of EVs involved in the projects. So when these projects were initially scoped, we anticipated that all EVs utilized would be light duty and we would only be installing level 2 charging infrastructure. However, as use cases were further explored with the community, PSE found that there were compelling use cases that would require medium to heavy duty EVs and DC fast chargers to correctly execute on. And another area we remained flexible was cost sharing within the pilot. So from the beginning, PSE committed to covering all costs related to charging infrastructure and installation, including all capital costs related to the EVSE, any anticipated site upgrades, and then any ongoing operations and maintenance costs throughout the life of the pilot. And then when it comes to cost sharing of the electric vehicle itself, the model we're following is that the participant will provide the cost of a similar gas-powered vehicle, and PSE will provide the incremental cost of the electric vehicle. And PSE has accommodated some change in that participant contribution, as most participants indicated they likely wouldn't purchase a brand new vehicle, which is what we were initially using as the gas-powered equivalent. And we also heard overwhelmingly that funding for rolling stock, particularly for those medium to heavy duty vehicles, which are sometimes 5 times more expensive, was the largest barrier to participation. And we also acknowledged that additional staff resources might be required on the part of the participant for data collection and management, and training on the EV and its charging infrastructure. So in most cases, PSE is also contributing an additional $10,000 over the life of the pilot to support that operational lift. And we also wanted to be flexible in what types of benefits we're measuring in each project and how we go about doing that, so as to appropriately capture the nuance of each use case and to build off of what some mobility programs are already measuring. So for now, we're thinking about pilot benefits as ways in which these projects may expand services to low-income customers, but letting the participants indicate to us how that materializes. So whether that be an increase in the number of customers served, a larger geographic reach, or an increased portfolio of services. Reduced or avoided operational costs. So depending on whether the EV is net new to the fleet or replacing a gas-powered vehicle. And then we're also working with participants to determine how they will use their operational savings over the life of the project to provide increased or enhanced services to low-income households. We're also looking at reduced or avoided carbon emissions, increased opportunities for EV education outreach, whether that be community events that involve the EV or staff member training on the EV, or EVSE or other mediums the participant might find valuable. And then also any unique social or safety benefits that may result from the implementation of the projects. So there are 5 projects you'll see on the slide that are in various stages of design and execution. We have 3 projects under the umbrella of the low-income weatherization use case, which will provide charging infrastructure and fleet vehicle electrification for a weatherization program to utilize for audit, inspection, and project coordination needs during the course of delivering weatherization or other social services to low-income households. And all 3 of these projects include level 2 charging, and all participants will be acquiring a light duty EV, so often a Chevy Bolt or similar. For the tribal transportation project, the tribe we're working with shared that tribal members were walking a 50-mile-per-hour highway with only 6-inch shoulders due to the expensive transit. And one of the highest causes of mortality among their tribal members is dangerous pedestrian conditions. So as a result, their tribal transportation program was created and serves community members whose mobility needs are not met by other transit agency routes or services. So this project involves the expansion of their free express shuttle bus service that runs along that highway. And PSE is supporting funding for a 14-passenger electric bus with 2 ADA accessible seats. And in order to provide the required vehicle range, we're installing a 50-kilowatt DC fast charger that will allow the vehicle to recharge efficiently during a midday lunch break. In this case, this use case provides a unique set of benefits. The implementation of an additional express shuttle will help reduce rider wait time by up to half, and make it more feasible for community members to opt for safer methods of transportation, as opposed to feeling pressured to walk along a dangerous highway in order to make it to their destination on time. And it will also increase access to community resources. The electric school bus pilot provides charging infrastructure and supports electrification of a Type A school bus for a Head Start transportation service provider. And the current gas-powered school bus that serves the intended route travels over 100 miles in one day. So we also plan to install a 50-kilowatt DC fast charger so that the bus can charge midday. And looking at the benefits section, one additional benefit noted throughout other electric school bus pilots we spoke to is the potential reduction of noise pollution for riders and drivers alike. The next use case is non-emergency medical transportation, which would serve those without reliable transportation to and from medical appointments. For this use case, we would be partnering with an organization that normally provides aggregated shuttle transportation services in the community to seniors and those with disabilities. But they are interested in becoming a broker for individualized NEMT rides. And for that would only require light duty electric vehicle and level 2 charging. And this use case can provide additional social and safety benefits in the form of increased quality of life in riders, stemming from early identification of health issues, reduction of missed appointments, and reduced readmission rates. And the final use case we're exploring is the electrification and expansion of a community car share program. So the program is a service for local pre-scheduled group trips that meet community identified transportation needs. They're often focused on food access, travel to community events, or other local errands. And the model for this use case is diverse in that the partner has an existing fleet of Nissan Leafs that could be utilized for this pilot. So no vehicle acquisition, only level 2 charging installation would be needed to make it feasible. And this shared mobility model will provide a net new service to our low-income customers in a new neighborhood through increased mobility and potential reduction of social isolation. So due to COVID-related schedule delays, we are just now launching our first projects and have acknowledged that some launches may need to move into 2021. Many of our participants are seeing their role within the community change or experiencing budget stresses, and so we're working with them to find solutions and to slow down the project timeline where necessary. And we're incredibly excited about this set of pilots. Looking into the future, we know there are always more ways to include community voices in project creation. This first set of pilots really focuses on use cases that capitalized on existing mobility networks, in which we could either support fleet expansion or replacement. But I think moving forward, it may be valuable to explore opportunities to support completely new and innovative electric mobility solutions as well, even if it requires additional time and resources. But I've talked a lot about PSE's co-creation of these pilot projects with our community, but when it comes to execution, Greenlots has been indispensable in working with us and project participants to meet project goals from a technology, equipment, and process improvement perspective. So I'll turn it over to Eric to tell you more.
Yes, well, thanks, Mackenzie, and thanks to PSE and GridFWD for having me here today. I'm Eric Carlin, and I'm a policy advisor to Greenlots. By way of some basic background, Greenlots is a provider of electric vehicle charging software services and infrastructure. And we're committed to accelerating transportation and electrification across not only Washington, but also beyond. And we've been glad to be PSE's partner in developing and implementing most all of their non-residential offerings involving EV charging to different degrees. It's become abundantly clear to Greenlots that there is a critical need for equity programs and equity considerations to permeate all aspects of transportation electrification initiatives. And this is the best practice that we're now seeing more comprehensively being embraced in a variety of different jurisdictions. And this is something that we've seen PSE is working diligently to incorporate in its planning and its outreach programs at a foundational level. Through these projects in particular, we've seen that flexibility, open-mindedness, and community outreach is critical and has resulted in better programs. This is something that Greenlots has been enthusiastic in being similarly flexible and open-minded in approaching and supporting these projects differently. This included being able to meet customers where they are and adapt to a variety of process change requests, and being able to dispatch our contractors rapidly after receiving different go-aheads and green lights from PSE. This was compounded by the need also to adapt quickly to new and unique safety guidelines on account of the pandemic. And these efforts all resulted in and supported the overarching goal of better serving customers in these pretty innovative pilots. An important note, I believe, is also that just investing in education and outreach, specific equity components, it also creates a unique additive effect that goes beyond just the direct impact of the programs themselves, and also helps grow the market and access in other ways, in ways that other investments and programs just do not. By increasing awareness and access and evolving like the psychology and thinking of consumers, these investments can be one of the most effective and means to overcome barriers and create interests that leads to EV adoption and electric transportation decisions, both in an equity context and also more broadly. I'll also note that on the regulatory side of things, that the Washington Utility and Transportation Commission's somewhat unique regulatory processes that afford a significant amount of regulatory flexibility supported in a meaningful way PSE and Greenlots' ability to be nimble and adapt, and resulted in better programs. And this is something that we believe maybe other states and jurisdictions should note, that may have more defined regulatory filing and approval processes that could perhaps be better tailored to support equity programs in their unique aspects. One other element that Greenlots has observed is that equity programs can act as a broader pilot and provide learnings and experiences to advance transportation electrification more broadly into new market segments, providing additional benefits beyond their specific programmatic bounds. But what I'll conclude here today with, which has been Greenlots' most significant learning and takeaway in supporting equitable access to transportation electrification, not only in Washington, but also more broadly in other jurisdictions. And this is the critical role of utilities and utility investment in supporting EV equity. These critical equity-focused offerings represent elements that the private market itself has largely left unaddressed, and utilities stand in what we see as the most powerful position to break through and address these market barriers. And indeed, I'd go so far as saying that leveraging utility core competencies, investment, and community connections really has been the most meaningful way we've seen these equity gaps addressed. So with that, I will wrap up, and I believe Mackenzie and I might have some time to address any questions. Thank you.